black, softy and nice. I touch it with my hand.
Soil is not dead matter. It is not dirt.
This is an economy without waste.
So much is being taken from the soil and not enough given back to it.
The soil is a universe.
Soil is the source of life.
The origins of earth, humus and human are similar. All too often we just look at the surface of the soil. We do not understand that it's as much of a living organism as we are ourselves.
Well, this is a still, and I've borrowed this still from one of the gardeners at Hauser Wirth. I was sort of challenging myself to embody Hauser Wirth, the landscape of this part of Somerset. Could I make a piece of work about that essence of a place, but that might be completely invisible, almost intangible? When you distill some plant material like sage or like lavender, you smell it and it's unmistakably from that plant. But what does soil smell like? You know, that's a really difficult question to answer. I gathered up some windfall apples and I distilled them. And I've got in the studio down the road, I've got these kind of liquids, clear liquids, and one mistake, which is brown. I'm making what's technically called a hydrosol, which is a very dilute essence coming from a mixture of the material that you've gathered, in my case soil, gathered it in the bottom, mixed up with spring water, put the heat under it, and then the steam just gathers in this top of the still and it comes down here and it condenses, gets cooler and comes out here. So that's what you're getting, is steam. So it doesn't look like anything, it just looks like water. But when you actually start to smell it, it has this very other quality. But that thing that we're passing around is the soil distillation. So it's very, you feel a bit like you're a witch or something doing this. It's a lot of fun. You do feel like you're doing something that people have been doing for thousands of years. And of course many things around soil are like that. They connect us to something very primitive. And it's intensely pleasurable to work with these kinds of materials, to be conscious of a place through the smell of what's beneath our feet.
Yeah, I'm Paul Cheney. I was invited to do a project here by Barton. Barton is on the Lizard in Cornwall, which is a peninsula that's only just really connected to the mainland. So the notion is like what would happen to the Lizard if it was disconnected from the rest of Cornwall. What are the resources here and how would people survive this speculative post-apocalyptic scenario? This is the plougher metric. It's a replica of a breast plough which is actually in Helston Museum. So there we go, we're ready to go now. To make it work you need to push it into the soil. So that's kind of in and then make the turn. It's ridiculously hard though. and you need to twist it to turn over the clod. So there's two sensors. One measures the pushing force, the compression, and one measures the torsion, the twist. So, right, we're recording data. Anyone else? You can't actually. Soil is an amazing thing. There's a kind of living organic elements on the surface of the crust that sort of holds all of the elements alive. But to actually work it, it's really hard work. Of course, in contemporary society, we pay other people to do it for us, and this kind of like narrows that gap. I think it's working quite well. From my position standing here relaxed now.
My name is Marissa Lee Benedict, and I'm a Chicago-based artist, a sculptor, installation artist, video artist. And I'm very interested in the way in which we observe and understand the world around us, and was invited here by CCANW and the University of Exeter to work with Gabriel and observe what he's working on, as well as kind of produce work in relationship to that.
There's lots of interesting wires in here. My name is Gabriel Yvonne de Roche, and I'm a lecturer at the Environment and Sustainability Institute, which is part of the University of Exeter. So my work broadly focuses on trying to understand how humans impact on the global carbon cycle. And this specific project, based at Liner Dairies near Ponsonooth, is focused on trying to understand how the way in which the farmer manages his land, so the way in which he looks after his herd and the grazing regime that he implements impacts on the amount of carbon dioxide that's absorbed or released by the pasture.
So we've embarked on a number of projects, which are both me kind of taking my camera lenses and looking closely at what Gabriel's doing, watching him set up his kit in the field, observing and monitoring to try and learn more about the carbon cycle and really understand what is going on, so then I can communicate that. Or working on some new, small testing projects, do some analysis on the carbon that's been sequestered within the soil here, which has not been measured yet. So we took a couple test core samples to do a loss on ignition process and measure the amount of carbon that has been already sequestered into the soil. That's kind of a starting or a baseline point from which to think about the carbon cycles in flux. And the work will continue evolving into a number of projects which I will be exhibiting as part of the CCANW exhibition.
This is part of the excrement that I'm using. I've been making this delicious looking feast, like full of all of these bowls of fruit and a billowing table of yummy desserts. But then it's all made from local excrement. So yeah. I was interested in this entwining of desire and disgust, and how on the one hand we can desire what disgusts us, and on the flip side we can be disgusted at our own desires. They've stemmed from filth, they've stemmed from dirt, and it's where they'll go back to. So I was interested in acknowledging that process within this piece. I've mentioned to some people that next year is the International Year of Soils. It's often been met with laughter because it's, oh, why do something on that? But actually it's fundamental to why we're here. It's often referred to as the skin of the earth. Hello, you alright? It's funny because I've only been here for 9 days, but I already feel part of the community. A lot of people have been helping, and so many people have like shouted over the gates and been like, oh, what are you doing? Or like, oh, what's this happening here? We're in this predicament with over farming that so much is being taken from the soil and not enough given back to it. Yeah, we need to give back to the soil.
Well, good evening everybody and welcome to the community garden. We've got a variety of fruit trees there. We've got apples, pears, plums.
I'm Anne-Marie Culhane and we're on Exeter University Streatham campus where I've been artist in residence doing a project called Campus Almanac. So I've commissioned a poet and a musician to write a new wassail.
To make you aware of cherry and pear, quince and mulberry, medlar and Arlington Mill, Lambrook Pippin, Tremlett's Bitter, Tom Putt, Royal Somerset.
Wassailing, which is a tradition to do with fruit trees and celebrating the turn of the year and waking up the fruit trees. How the changing climate is affecting orchards in the region, talking to orchard holders and academics about how the different environmental conditions will affect trees in the future. Trying to engage students and staff and local residents in what is a fantastic campus. It's a kind of arboretum, it's got loads of plants in different landscapes and ecosystems, and it's about trying to bring that to life.
My name is Anton Brutakov. We are at the Eden project in Cornwall in the Mediterranean biome. It is essentially a three-dimensional pinboard to collect images, objects and ideas about soil, which I'm doing in conversation with the public and the members of the Eden team. It's actually based on the molecular structure of clay, and Eden project is built in a crater in a quarry which used to mine China clay. And when people come and talk to me or they ask me about it, I will ask them about what soil means to them, and I hope to get some of the more personal stories connected with soil. So there will be several stories which told through objects which are worked out, which intersect and hopefully invite new stories to form. I have now one story which is forming to do with the fertilizer and the invention of the method to synthesize fertilizer in the lab. It would be great if people contributed their objects, because then I have more ideas, more data, more inspiration to make my final map. The soil is a universe. At whichever level you look at it, it's just one of the levels. If you can look at sub-microscopic level, for example, the structure of clay, and it opens up beautiful structures. You can look at the level of society of a time scale of many hundreds of years, or sub-second time scales, and at every level there are new stories opening up. So it's going to be a more subjective take on these stories, the things which I found interesting and the threads which I wanted to follow, and it may keep developing in the future.
My name is Lisa Hermer, and I'm the artist in residence here at Peninsula Arts, which is in Plymouth. And the project I'm doing is called Peak Peat. Bit of a tongue twister. In this project, I've been working with the researchers here. I'm learning about peat as a carbon sink and its capacity to store carbon, to absorb it from the atmosphere and then trap it as it builds up. I've also been talking to the public and working on a survey about how we value things like carbon sinks that are very global and collective and long-term in their benefit, but difficult to see tangibly in our everyday lives. And so this survey is used as a tool for thinking through an idea and starting some public conversations around this. The survey is purposely a little bit absurd of trying to put values onto things that really are almost impossible to put a value on. So that really comes across in the survey. A lot of people have taken the option of coming up with their own scale. It's also been really interesting to see how willing people have been to engage with the survey and how long they've been willing to sit and tackle these difficult questions and think them through. The survey is unscientific. It's not going to churn out a specific data figure. It's more for a tool for thinking together and starting some conversations. And as the surveys have gone up on the wall every day, I add up the new surveys from that day. You can see just where people's thinking is at. I'm really interested in the barriers for change. So these moments we know we need to change, but for some reason we're not able to do that. And I think that these surveys start to show a kind of a portrait of that barrier.
I'm Deborah Solomon. I am exploring the rhizosphere and launching the first phase of research for a project called Entropical. The rhizosphere is the universe of the soil world around the roots. And this is the area of the most exchange. This is where most of the beasts live and all kinds of bacteria, protozoa, amoebas. It's where fungi are. And it's wonderful and a terrible honor to be here at the Schumacher College, where this approach, holistic approach to the soil, is understood. This is the top of the plant, right there. The root system of a red clover, a mature red clover plant. A plant that's actually only between this big and this big. All of the beasts, like this worm right here, the beasts and the beasts that this one is feeding on, they're eating what this root is putting out into the soil. It takes its carbon from the photosynthesis and it puts that into the soil. And fungi are amazing at breaking down dead material. Here are some mycelium, the white bits. Fungi. Okay. Everybody happy. This is an economy without waste. A beautiful and complex dance of exchange of nutrients for energy.
I am Andy Merritt, one half of Something in Sun.
I'm Paul Smythe, the other half of Something in Sun.
Doing the residency at Kew Gardens, it's been great because we've just had access to the whole of Kew. They haven't minded where we go.
We're working on a project that explores the issue that there are only 50 harvests of soil left in the world.
The point for the work is just to show the complexity behind what nature does.
By being at Kew over the last few weeks and then culminating in an intensive period of working, we're going to end up with these machines which try to replicate those complex processes. But we suspect already that we'll inevitably fail because you can't do what nature intended.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a folly.
So we're essentially taking this big issue of how do you make soil, what is it, Something that's a language you learn from a very young age, but actually really what is soil and what's not soil. We've been talking to the scientists and getting really in-depth information about how it's formed, and it's essentially a kind of really potent mix of geological systems, the grinding down of rocks, the rotting through bacterial action, and the elements of vegetable matter, but also the movement of animals, and it's this kind of incredible complex ecosystem rather than a static object, and that's why it's so hard to sustain. And
we need to look after it.
My name is Sarah Staresic, and we are at Dalesford Organic Farm. It's visually beautiful, and you can feel the contours of the earth. And one of the things that the Dalesford Farm was interested in was having an artist respond to the concept of terroir. Terroir, or a sense of place, could best happen if people have this really powerful or memorable or positive experience here on site. My project is an audio walk. A lot of my project is about the things that can't be seen and that must be imagined.
I remember my father, and I saw him, he picked up soil in his hands and he smelt it. And I watched it, and when he'd gone, I picked it up and I smelt the soil, and there's a definite, it's a smell, it's everything.
People who come to do the walk here at the farm put on headphones and then walk, and they listen to stories that are being told by people from Dalesford and also people from the local community.
Soil makes me happy. When I was very little, I was on a farm and running around in the dirt all the time. When you see these great long monocultures, biodiversity, the life in the soil's gone, it's been stripped, but you can't see it.
So along with the headphones, people receive a map of the market garden, and on the map, the spots where I've suggested that people stop and listen to the stories are indicated.
Big oak trees, lime trees, it's perfect for the bees. It's something very special, I think.
I'm a landscape architect, and I'm working with Sophie Mason, who is an artist and an urban grower, and we've been commissioned by CCA&W to work on the design and the creation of a roof garden for the Dolphin School in Bristol for the construction of their new secondary school roof garden.
What we ideally want to do is take a slice of the land and bring it up into the sky. We've been considering how to move large quantities of soil onto the roof.
Wanting to work with kids and local parents to upcycle materials, to take wood and scrap wood from other construction sites. The roof garden, although it's a small space, it's about creating a place that is abundant. It's very rich and alive and diverse and buzzing.
We've been trying to organise a way for a lot of the food to go into the kitchen, and for us then to use the waste from the kitchen to create compost, creating that closed loop system.
And I think for Sophie and I, what it came down to is really this concept of care. Climate change, loss of biodiversity, pollution, war, famine. I mean, how can we cultivate care? Care for ourselves, care for each other, and care for nature.
My name's Karen Weidler. I'm working at Hannah's Seal Hane, which in the last few years has been set up as a charity. specifically to support and give education to adults and children with learning difficulties. I'm making a sculpture there called Bread and Roses. It's a seat made of earth, made of cob. My intention was, through the making and through its use, to get people directly in contact with the earth, with the ground and with the material that we've used. Today we're making mosaics at the Respect Festival in Exeter because there's 3 mosaic panels that are going to make part of the sculpture. They tell a story of extinction and the possibility of some kind of change in farming policy and people's personal practices. It was an agricultural college. It also has a history of neurological work in treating people with PTSD during and following the First World War. And we're using some of that historical material in the mosaics by printing onto the tiles to bring some of that archive to life. It was important to me for the work at Seal Hain to use mainly natural materials, like the structures made of cob. It uses locally cut hazel, and we're going to be tiling the roof with sweet chestnut shingle and handmade tiles. What we want to think about now is the possibilities of new practices in farming and agriculture, and the kind of food we eat and how food's produced in our country. Using Seal Hain material and the kind of work going on there as holding some kind of possibility and hope for how we can start to change our relationship to the land.
So I'm Flora Gaithorn-Hardy and I work
with Mish Fabhalun, and we are a collaboration called Touchstone Collaborations, and we've been invited to do the final residency in Bristol at the Create Centre, which is in the Cumberland Basin.
For our residency, we're working with Maddie Longhurst of the Bluefinger Alliance, and the Bluefinger Alliance is a group of people who are protecting a strip of very productive, very precious land that runs out of Bristol, and it's called Bluefinger because when they map the best land in the country, they mark the best land as blue, and that's what the Alliance is seeking to protect, is this strip of precious soil which is being actually threatened with road building. We're going to be working with a site called Feed Bristol.
They're essentially feeding Bristol on a small scale, growing food for box schemes, and we'll be harvesting some of their bounty and bring the soil itself right into the heart of the gallery and give people a feel of it so that the voice of soil is right at the heart. Soil is the source of life. When I began working with food as a medium for my practice as an artist, I began to understand that the food itself came from somewhere. There's an incredible teeming world underneath our feet.
The life of soil is its interdependence, is its the complexity and the richness.
Little creatures, soil creatures and soil communities, they begin to actually create the nutrients for the food to then be grown up into plants, which then nourishes us, and then that whole cycle through our own bodies, but also through the composting, and that goes back into the ground to feed the soil.
It's that incredible ecology of everything being connected to everything else.
Because the residencies are quite short, only 10 days, it can't be expected that every artist is going to produce finished work. What's more important is that they should research and understand from the host what is important about soils, and to find a way through their art of communicating that to a wider public.